All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Saturday, September 27th. As you can see, I am back home. Got in late, well, yeah, late last night. So I'm a little jet lagged. So we'll see how well I do with answering questions in my current state. Should be fine, but we will see. All right, we've got a panel here. We've got smaller than usual panel, but maybe that's because people have forgotten about AMAs. We haven't done one in a while. It's been almost a couple of months. And Super Chat is open. So those of you who are online on YouTube can ask questions using the Super Chat. Those of you who are watching on a different platform can jump over to YouTube and go online. Those of you who are $25 or more supporters on a monthly basis through one of the platforms, you should have received a link to be able to join the panel. So feel free to jump in whenever you feel like it and join us and ask questions live. So yeah, it's good to be back. It's nice to have my studio. It's nice to have all the equipment set up and working. Although when I first came in, I turned on my soundboard and everything, and nothing. No, didn't even. It was dead, completely dead. So it took a while to get it to come to life. You do CPR, and ultimately it came to. All right, let's jump in with our panel. Jennifer, hi.
In the old days, photographs and video used to be evidence for crimes and things. I guess they still use it to a certain extent, but now with AI, you can change things, right? So it's not really evidence in the way it used to be. Would you say that that'd be something to think about in the future? Not
Well, it's
already?
definitely something people will have to deal with. There are ways in which we can, I think they can tell what's being tinkered with AI and what hasn't. Um, so as AI gets better, AI that figures out what's AI and what's not gets better as well. But it is going to become more complicated and it's going to become harder. And even more so, I think, than in criminal prosecution, where there's a budget to actually go and figure out what's real and what's not, and what is being tinkered and what's not. We watch videos and photographs all day long on the internet, on Twitter and places like that. We see public figures saying certain things, and I mean, right now you can tell if it's AI or not. I mean, with the naked eye. So you could have people saying whatever the AI decides. Now, there's some legal liability there that they're exposing themselves to. So that's going to limit it. But yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah, 60 years ago, there was a Star Trek episode where they actually had that happen, where they said Kirk did something and he knows that he didn't do it, but the
Yep.
video showed that he did, and it turned out someone tampered with the video. That was 60 years ago, they were thinking of that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, but they were thinking of it in what year was that? Star
Like
Date.
65 or something.
Yeah, way ahead, way in hundreds of years, and here we are already with the
Yeah.
capacity to. I mean, AI is creating completely new realities. I mean, you could tell it to make a movie, and it makes up the actors, and it's not taking clips from other places. It's literally making the video up. It's pixel by pixel, or it's pretty amazing what it can do.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. Adam, you're muted.
Yes, now I'm not muted.
No, you're not.
Okay. Um, I mentioned uh, Crash Landing in Love, the Korean TV serial that
Yep.
seems to be um, a fan fiction TV serial, the first one ever. And when I mentioned it to you, you said that they are not depicting North Korea realistically. However, the male protagonist is the son of the chief political officer of the North Korean army, very high up in the North Korean hierarchy. And North Korea is notorious for having Western-style living conditions for its top nomenclatura, which of course would include him. So I don't think that part is unrealistic. They don't have any means to show everyday life for ordinary people in South Korea, except in incidents like an electric train suddenly stops because there's an electricity outage or a hospital has no blood for transfusions. So in those respects, it's fairly realistic. And the amazing thing is that South Korea has enough people to have an audience for an Ayn Rand fan fiction TV show.
I don't know if it's an Ayn Rand fan fiction TV show, but South Korea does have a large audience that has good taste. I mean, a lot of the content that coming out of there is really, really good, and I've seen it. I couldn't get into that show. I found the main character not that interesting, and again, I only watched a few episodes. So, and then when she comes into the village in North Korea, they're way too happy. And uh, anyway, it wasn't some of the Korean shows I love. There are four of them, I think, that I really love. And then others, I watch a few episodes and I lose interest. But there's definitely a value orientation to Korean TV shows that doesn't exist in the West. There's a benevolence and a respect for integrity and respect for values that I don't see. There's no cynicism that in these shows. Now, of course, they also have the flip side of that is they have what do you call it? The something games, which was just awful philosophically and in every respect, sense of life wise, in every respect. Although I didn't watch season two, which I can't believe would be better. Squid Games, but the point is, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's amazing that there are enough people in Korea to that are interested, that are watching, that are engaged with shows that have no cynicism and that have heroes and have positive messages, and it's just fun to watch. I've been to South Korea a few times, and I don't know what it is, and I have, it's not in the I don't see it in the people I meet there, but it's got to be somewhere. It's got to be somewhere.
But watching the show, I started getting Ayn Rand references from the very start of the story, when the woman protagonist is in a clinic in Switzerland that helps people commit suicide, and she doesn't meet the criteria, and she's wandering in a daze out of it. And then she hears music, and this music is both a reference to Haley's Fifth Concerto in Atlas Shrugged and the bicycle scene, the boy on the bicycle in the Fountainhead, because it changes her life. The experience of art changes her life. Now she's going to live a positive life and become an entrepreneur and a very successful one.
So maybe I'm skeptical. I mean, her books are in South Korea. They're translated into Korean. Even my book is in South Korean, is translated. So her book's in Korean. So it could be, it could very well be, but I think the transformational impact of art is not unique to Ayn Rand. You see that in other places. But yeah, I mean, I hope so. It'd be great if we've got a bunch of. I think the parallels to Atlas Shrugged are even more so in in God, my favorite TV show, which is the Korean show. Anyway, uh, you guys remember? Somebody remembers.
For
Mr.
sunshine?
Mr. Sunshine. I think the references there are even greater. But yeah, I mean, it seems like hard for me to tell whether I'm reading it into it or if it's there, and it's very hard to be objective about these things. Thanks, Adam. Let's see, Amlan.
Hey, Yaron, can you hear me okay?
Yep, hear you fine.
Okay. Um, so I don't want this question to sound like a challenge because it isn't meant that way, but it's on a broad sense, it's like ROI on the money that people donate for objectivist organizations and causes and things like that. So let me just explain this a little bit more. For example, the support that I provide to this to your channel, as small as it is in comparison to many other people, but it's the best I can do. I have two components of that. Like one of them is for the news because I really really like the fact that you put up with all the crap, read the news, and analyze it in a way that I can trust. So I don't have to spend the time to do that. But secondly would be, to advance the objectivist ideas. So the same reason I donate to the ARI and to any other organizations. And I guess the first part, absolutely, no problem. I see the ROI. But where is the ROI for the second part? Because nothing I'm seeing, and maybe it's just been such a horrible past few months, that's kind of bringing me to this. But nothing I've seen would give me any hope that our ideas are getting any traction anywhere.
Well,
So
what does it mean for ideas to gain traction, right? So, are
yeah,
ideas gaining traction in politics? No, zero, zilch, nada. They're not. But is that what it means that our ideas are gaining traction, and how big of a traction counts? So, um, every week or two, I get an email or a text or something from somebody who says, you changed my life because of you. I read Ayn Rand. It changed or because of something the Institute did, and that's even more frequent. I read Ayn Rand, and so there are people on a regular basis whose life is being changed because of what I'm doing and what the Institute is doing. Is that having an impact on the culture? Not yet, not in visible ways, but it must be having some impact. These people in their lives are better. They're living better lives. They're happier. They're advocating for these ideas or they live by these ideas. So, it's having an impact, but you're right. The ROI is not visible. And that's frustrating and it's difficult. And when I used to be the CEO of the Ayn Rand Institute, it was the biggest challenge of how do you tell donors what's the return on investment? Where do they see it? And it's hard. You know how many people have read the books, how many students are submitting essays, how many new intellectuals do we have in our programs? But none of that translates into on a day-to-day basis. I'm not seeing more objectivists out there in the streets, or I'm not seeing any politicians or whatever.
yeah,
That's the reality. And I don't have a better ROI than just the whatever number of people's minds are changed on any given day, in any given week, in any given month. And I don't have that number because we don't have contact with all those people.
yeah. No, fair enough. But I guess, you know, if I just look since Charlie Kirk's assassination, like what's happened now? Like another 2 million Christian nationalists, 3 million, 5 million, some ridiculous number, right? And
Things are getting
completely
worse.
agree with you. Sorry?
Things are getting worse.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, it's fine that we're treading water, or we think we're treading water, but are we, right? Like the deluge is coming. Maybe I'm stretching the analogy, but you know what I mean, that, we might gain a couple of minds every week, but meanwhile, millions are just going to some other crazy idea, or
Yeah.
going to Mandani, or again, even getting outside of politics. It just seems like a losing battle. And I wonder at some point if we just say, you know what, this is just a losing battle.
As frustrated as you are, believe me, I'm even more.
Okay.
So, I mean, look, again, what does it mean to say it's a losing battle? That is, I've always said change will not come in my lifetime. I will
Right.
not see the world that we all imagine. I won't, and I don't think you will, and I don't think anybody on this call will. Maybe some of the younger people, maybe Jacob will.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
um, I hope that I see the beginnings, like the little thing coming out of the ground, that will become a tree
Right.
one day.
Right.
I hope I see the beginnings of that, and to some extent, I do. Just the quality and the number of intellectuals that are coming up, and who are going to, I think, have an impact. So I hope to see that. But even that, I don't know if I'll see, because it could very well be that within the next 10 years, America will become an authoritarian state like Russia, where we're not authoritarian in the sense that there are no elections, but the elections are rigged.
Yeah.
Not a totalitarian state, but certainly an authoritarian state, a la Orban in Hungary, or
Yeah.
Putin in Russia. And it'll look like we've lost, but of course those states ultimately collapse. And then the question is what replaced them, and even then we don't know that we've really lost, and when we have lost. So it's quite possible that things will get a lot worse before they get better, and it's even
Yeah.
likely that things will get a lot worse before they get better right now.
Yeah.
That's just the reality, and the changing the culture, changing the world, is to impact the lives of individuals. There'll be individuals who are impacted, and to work for our kids and our grandkids, for the very distant future. And then,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, people online are saying, "Oh, but Argentina's looking like it's in trouble." I mean,
Yeah.
much as I love you,
Yeah.
Milei, even there,
Yeah.
the news is negative right now.
Yeah.
He just got a big bailout out from Trump, which is not a good sign that Trump has to bail
No.
him out. Maybe that's why he's been sucking up to Trump all these for the last year, so he could get this bailout ultimately. And October 26th election doesn't look like it's going to go his way. His popularity in Argentina has declined significantly, and the real problems, the real
Yeah.
problem. So, and I don't believe somebody says optimism is a duty. I don't believe in duties. Period.
No.
Exclamation point. And I certainly don't believe optimism is a duty, and I don't agree with Karl Popper. So, so sorry, yeah, I'm not sure what his name is. All right, so yeah, I mean, that's the reality, and we got to be honest about that reality and face that reality.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Evelyn. Jacob.
Well, that's a strong note to follow up with. But so my question was, I was listening to your show on Hassan Piker and the violence calls, and then I was also thinking of the integration with the FCC and the arbitrary nature of those laws there. So how is the calls to violence of Hassan not shouldn't be something that, hey, you can lock someone in jail for calling violence against, say, capitalists, and then say, well, you have to narrow it down to maybe 100 people. Then you can say, hey, this person deserves to be locked up in jail. Like, at what
No, I
point do
don't
you
think it's an
say,
issue of narrowing down. That is, I think that if he says go kill the capitalists, and there is a legitimate reason to believe that there are people out there who are listening to that and will act on it,
mhm,
then I think he can be criminally liable. He could be, that could be incitement. But if he's saying kind of to broad people, there's no now corporate people that are going to do anything, and indeed nobody has done anything. Um, go kill the capitalist as a kind of metaphor for something, and in part of a rant that he's really angry or whatever. But it's not a literally you guys over there, you guys go do it. Then I don't think it is. Now, again, if you can link it to somebody who is radicalized or incited by him, then yeah, he should be criminally liable for that. But as a general statement, the capitalist should be killed. I don't think is a violation, is incitement. And this is the difference. I think I answered this question on one of the shows recently. The difference between this and Islamism, when the Islamic preacher says, go commit jihad, kill the infidel, he is talking to a specific number of people who are willing to do that, who are eager to do that, who are, taking up arms and rushing out to do it. It's not theoretical. It's not part of a rant. It's part of a systematized ideology of that is committed to violence, and there are people waiting for the command to go fulfill it. Now, if you could show the left is that is the people on the left who view Hassan Paika in the same way that Islamists view the local imam, then I'd say, yeah, he should go to jail.
So would you say historically it would be something like the 1960s levels of violence if you had translocated him back into that culture or brought that culture up here and you had the public assassinations?
There has to be a link between the violence and what he's saying. So if Hassan Paika is the spiritual leader of, I don't know, Socialists for Violence, let's call them, right? And he says, go kill the capitalist, and a week later, a Socialist for Violence kills a capitalist, then it's clear cut. Then there's no question about his culpability and responsibility, right? The further you go from that, the more difficult it is to show culpability.
Could you see an area for law enforcement to, okay, he's not liable, but then you can monitor those groups, and if you see a call for violence like that, and then suddenly they buy 10 guns and 20 knives, would that be some preventive action there?
Absolutely. And you could show the causal link between the two, or at least the seeming causal link between the two. And you can show an ideological affinity, and you can show that they acted on what he asked them to do. Then yeah, absolutely, go after him. So, and anybody who calls for violence, even on a theoretical level, should be monitored by law enforcement, because that is, even if it's protected speech, that does not mean that they shouldn't be monitored and observed for the chance that it goes from some theoretical musings to something actionable. And when it does, law enforcement needs to pounce. So it's not that I think Hassan Paika, I'm sure, is monitored by the FBI because of talk like that. If he's not, then then the FBI is derelict in their duty. It's exactly those kind of things that require monitoring. It just doesn't yet rise to the level. Now, as far as I know, now there might be evidence to the contrary, where there are people, there is a network of people waiting for the command. But as far as I know, it hasn't yet risen to the level where he would be indicted. But it's certainly at the level where he should be under observation.
Okay, thank you.
Like I would authorize a wiretap on Hassan Paika's phone based on that segment of his interview.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Nope, makes sense on the specificity is needed there. So that helps clarify it.
Yep. Yeah, thanks for asking. All right, I see Applejack says, welcome home from cloudy, cool LA. It's sunny. The sun is shining here in Puerto Rico. It's 89 degrees. Tonight it'll drop all the way down to, I don't know, a freezing 79. But I did hear thunder when I came into the office. So there are thunderstorms out there. In Puerto Rico, in California, when it rains, it rains in like a whole stretch, like 100 miles. Everywhere it's raining. Like everywhere you drive, it's raining. It comes in all together, and when it rains, everywhere it rains. In Puerto Rico, it could rain like a block from here, and never rain where we are. And then you can see the little rain cloud coming, and it'll drop a little bit of rain on you and then move on. And, another rain cloud will come from somewhere else. So it's rain is different here. It's in that sense, in the tropics, it's very different. So it's cloudy over there. It's sunny. It's cloudy, not that far from us, but it's sunny where I am. Okay, let's since there are no super chats, let's go to Jennifer.
How much of art, when you look at a piece of art, how much do you think is how much you appreciate the technical aspect compared to how it hits you emotionally? Do you think the emotional part's more important in the end, or not necessarily?
I mean, I think it depends. It very much depends on. I mean, most people have no clue about the technical parts of it. So for most people, just the emotional hitting. Maybe they can identify some, oh, look at the fabric, is what a sheen it has on there, or things like that. So people can appreciate certain aspects of the painting's technical side, but they don't really know much more. So I think it to a large extent depends on what you are bringing to the experience, the knowledge that you're bringing to the experience. The more you know, the more you gain appreciation from the technical, from the historical, from the context, from the story being depicted, in addition to kind of the sense of life, emotional response that you get. So the more they're integrated, the more you know. The less you know, then obviously the sense of life dominates because that's all you have. You don't have anything else. So I find like when I was in Italy now, I just find it so interesting to look at the art. Okay, is this early 15th century or late 15th century, or is it late 14th century? Is this a transition between the Middle Ages to the Renaissance? Is this high Renaissance? Just because the transitions are so interesting and the change. Is this before they knew about perspective? Is this after they knew about perspective? And so I can even, look at which you do a lot when you're in Italy, paintings and sculpture of Jesus crucified over and over and over and over again. But they're all super interesting to me, right? Because they're all different and they still reflect the artist's sense of life because most of them are great art. They all reflect an artist's sense of life, and they also reflect the knowledge of the period. They reflect the approach to religion. And it's like, wow. I mean, so I can enjoy like crucifixes in a way that I couldn't if I didn't have the knowledge of all the history of it, and I can abstract away what's actually going on. There's a church in Florence which has I think it's a wooden carving of a crucifixion that Michelangelo did when he was young. And they've identified it as Michelangelo, I don't know, in the last 20 or 30 years or something. And it's hung in the church. And you can kind of tell Michelangelo, inspired by Michelangelo, there's something different about that than, I don't know, a crucifixion 100 years earlier, or a crucifixion by just another artist I have photos. I have hundreds of photos of crucifixions on my phone, because I at some point I want to do a talk on all the differences between them and what they represent and the sense of, and it's good to take the same topic over and over again, because then you can abstract away the topic and just look at the differences, look at what they do differently. And I find it fascinating and interesting. So I respond differently to art because of that, because I bring that context into it. There was, I think I mentioned this on the show, but it's a funny thing. But it's like I've got now, there's a phenomena which I call the penis phenomena in art, in the pre-Renaissance, in the Renaissance and post-Renaissance period, where pre-Donatello's David, there are no penises, right? They're all covered. Post-Donatello's David, the penises everywhere, like everywhere. It's ridiculous. Every sculpture, everywhere, they're in your face. They're like, there's no I mean, it's amazing once you start paying attention to these things, it's everywhere. And then you get the Counter-Reformation. So you get post-Luther, you get the Catholic Church becoming more Christian with the Inquisition ramps up and they become more religious, and suddenly all the penises are covered up again. So it's fascinating just to look at art through this lens of history and through this lens of the evolving Christian attitudes towards different things. And it was just fun just to, I guess, look at penises. I mean, observe the way they dealt with penises in the art of the different periods. You know that Donatello's David, I didn't realize this, is the first sculpture in the round where you can actually walk around it, see it from all 360 degrees in 1,000 years. Right? So for 1,000 years, from Rome until 14 whatever, when Donatello makes this, there are no sculptures in the round. They're all either they're usually just in what do you call it, in niches in sides of buildings, or carved in the side of a building. But they're not. So it's the first one in 1,000 years that's in the round, and it's the first one in 1,000 years that's nude. So that means something. And then so you look at David now and you go, oh, wow. This is like, it's not just a great work of art. It's like symbolic of the Christian era is over. Maybe it's coming back, but Christian era is over. The Renaissance has just begun.
Yaron, do you think they would have models that they based all the sculptures off of, or was this all from imagination?
Oh, no, they use models. At least in the Renaissance, they use models. And then, of course, the other fascinating thing is, there was no, Donatello did not know the muscles. And I mean, he knew that only from looking at a model, right? But Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, even before Michelangelo, are both dissecting bodies, even though it could have got them, could have got them in real trouble with the church. They're dissecting bodies at night in secret. They're paying people to dig up graves or to bring them bodies and get dissected. So they already not only are using models, but they now start having a real understanding of the muscles and bones and joints and how they work, and they're doing drawings of those. And again, no bodies were dissected for over 1,000 years. I mean, people say there was no Dark Ages, and there is, but even in the non-Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, which weren't that dark, which a little less dark, put it that way, it's still there's no astronomical observations, there's no art in the round, there's no nudity, and there's no in art, and there's no dissection, and there's no science. There's almost nothing happening. And then you get the Renaissance, it's like boom, and it explodes. It just explodes, and it's so amazing. And so when you know the history, like, you gain an appreciation for what the art of the Renaissance, what it represents, what it means, the cultural context, what it meant to humanity, what it meant to us. We wouldn't exist without the Renaissance, right? While freedoms, our life wouldn't be what it is without the Renaissance happening. And it's just an explosion of culture, an explosion of pro-man culture, pro-this world culture. That is, so you look at the paintings, even paintings of religious topics, which dominate Italian Renaissance. You see the humanity in it. You see Jesus and the Madonna are now a mother and child. And they're not just Jesus and Madonna, whereas before, they're Jesus and a Madonna. They're symbols. And now it's like a woman and a child, and they're giggling, or they're playing, or he's sticking his finger in her mouth, or tickling her or something. They bring humanity to it suddenly, and it's individuals, it's human. They're not just abstractions, which they were in the Middle Ages.
Yeah, I was thinking about movies too, like, The Wizard of Oz. Do you like that movie?
Yep. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
'Cause even though the story, it's some kind of political satire, it's probably kind of goofy, but it's such a beautiful movie. The singing, the dancing, the sets,
Yeah,
the
and it's
acting
fun.
is
It's got a positive
fantastic.
sense of life. It's got a great sense of life,
Yeah,
right? It's all about, it's all about the joys of color and she goes from black and white world to a color world, and
yeah.
so it's very much a sense of life, a positive sense of life movie. So there's so many dimensions to art, and movies, of course, are the most complicated, complex of all the art forms because they have so many dimensions. But yeah, you can enjoy lots of different things within a movie. You can enjoy the acting, abstract away everything else.
The music is great in that one too.
Yeah, yeah. That
The
one, I
singing.
mean, the acting's good, the music's good, the singing, the dancing. I mean, the colors, the way it's filmed. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a fun movie.
Thank you.
All right, Adam.
Um, One thing that I haven't seen from objectivist sources is the link between having the world's worst philosophy of education, where teachers in that worst philosophy of education started getting turned out from the Columbia University School of Education right after the veterans started coming back from World War II. And then the first teachers and administrators got hired by the most expensive private schools, like the one that Donald Trump went to. And now we see that a majority of Americans, or at least a majority of American voters, are miseducated in the world's worst anti-philosophy of education. And both the woke left and the MAGA movement reflect a mass disminding. People do not think in concepts and principles in this country anymore. The startups are dependent almost completely, number one, on the very few Americans who went to Montessori schools in childhood, but the majority immigrants from countries with a better education system. That's a massive impact. And I think Ayn Rand called her essay on this the Comprachicos, but very few Americans have read The Man Who Smiles or are familiar with European folklore. So her title probably went over everybody's head, but still, at least the objectivist institutions should draw attention to this.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lena does in Why Johnny Can't Read or Why Johnny Can't Think. I think it was Why Johnny Can't Think. Um, and yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot over the years about progressive education, how evil it is and how bad it is. I travel around the world, and sadly, it's not clear that people in other countries are that much better off. A little bit. I always thought the Brits were better, and now I look at the Brits and they're terrible. And the rest of Europe is struggling, and the United States is doing very well. Maybe not for very long, but has been doing. So we've talked about this in the past. One is I think a lot of kids go to Montessori, so a lot more kids than a lot of kids. There's Montessori schools everywhere in America. Some of them are not that good, but there are a lot of Montessori schools. I think you overemphasize the role of immigrants. While I think it's huge, and we're about to see what happens when you don't have immigrants. So we will test this theory out very soon here, thanks to Donald Trump. Given that not only are we accepting fewer immigrants, but people are not going to come here because we're so unwelcoming to them that we're going to see what happens to America with fewer immigrants. But yeah, I mean, Mindlessness this is why Johnny can't think. He can't think. He really, really, really can't think. Americans can't think because of progressive education. And sadly, it would be great if we could say that people in X country could think. Maybe they can think a little bit better than Americans, but it still seems that the whole world is struggling and has been struggling. But yes, I agree. We've got to put a lot more focus on progressive education, and we're not going to change anything until we change education. Until people start thinking, going back to Amlan's question, you can't have a cultural impact unless you have a culture that is open to thought. And sadly, we have a culture that is pretty blacked out. The idea of thinking is too much effort for too many people. Right,
Well,
Amlan.
I could mention one country where Montessori is the standard preschool curriculum, but you'll tell me again I'm overdoing it.
I think you're probably overdoing it. The country's Poland. Yeah, I mean, Poland's doing well. How well, we'll see. But yes. And also, how good is the Montessori education is always a good question. I mean, I know a lot of Montessori schools that are now really Montessori. You've got to get that right. But there are a lot of Montessori schools. Italy, where Montessori, of course, came from, I don't think has many, sadly. And I don't see many in Europe generally. I think it's big in India. India. I think it's big in Poland, and it's big in the United States, but I don't see it in much of the rest of Europe, sadly. Amlan.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why some people voted for Trump was they said that he would be better for Israel. In fact, I think you had a guest who specifically said that, but I think his term was, "I'd hold my nose and vote for him because he's better for Israel."
Adam Ossoff said that. Yep.
Right. I guess I'm actually wondering if there's a counterfactual here that, would actually Israel have been better off with a Kamala because she wouldn't have a cudgel to hold over them all the time, the way Trump seems to have. Because
she would have had
Trump
what?
says, "Okay, well, would Israel actually have been better off with Kamala? Because she would have probably abandoned them. She would have said,
Yep.
no, I'm not going to support you."
Yep.
But then Israel would have, now whether they actually would have done this, but they would have had to kind of go it alone.
Yep.
And she wouldn't have had as much influence over the country as Trump has. Like just the other day when he said, like, okay, there has to be peace in Gaza, or whatever the heck he said at 2:00 in the morning, right?
Yeah.
No doubt changed at 3. But he because he's always got this thing he can say, listen, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to cut off this, or implied or open threats. Would Israel perhaps have been better off to just be like, okay, we don't have the U.S. to support us, and we're going to go deal with it, or without that U.S. support, they'd be in deep, deep trouble. Bad as qualified as the support is.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the problem with anything good Trump does is it's that Trump is doing it.
Yeah.
So I think his support of Israel is not necessarily that helpful. And I think it also is creating a false sense of security in Israel that they can get away with stuff that maybe they cannot.
Yeah.
But it's hard to tell what would have happened if Kamala was there. There certainly is an argument of the counterfactual that yes, she would have tried to stop them, but they would have gone it alone, and there's certain benefit to that. They wouldn't have been dependent on the United States as they are now. But it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell how things would have evolved. It's hard to tell exactly what's going to come of this, right? So supposedly he's got a peace plan that's going to stop Israel from actually taking Gaza. They're in Gaza City now. They are days, weeks away from control over Gaza City completely. And he says he's got a peace plan. Supposedly, what's his name? The former Prime Minister of England.
Tony Blair.
Tony Blair is going to be the president of Gaza.
I know, what a joke.
During the reconstruction. and they're going to have a multinational force there to keep the peace. But who knows? This is a Tony Blair, supposedly a Tony Blair plan. Who knows what comes of that? Who knows what would have happened with Iran if Kamala was in there? Would she? What would she have done if Israel started bombing Iran? Would the fact that she wouldn't have bombed the facility, would that have encouraged Israel to keep going? Which is what I think they needed to
Exactly.
do.
That's exactly the question I was going to ask you. Like,
Yeah.
would they have actually kept going and done the regime change? Because I don't think it was that far away.
No, I don't think so either.
And
I think it was weeks away. If they would have
yeah,
weakened the internal structures more, gone after the supreme leader, if they'd killed the supreme leader, if
yeah,
they'd gone after more of which Trump didn't want them to do, he told them not to do. If they'd gone after the clerics, I think they could have achieved regime change. I said so at the time. With Kamala, would they have done that? Maybe. No, I think there's the legitimate argument. And look, Israel today, because Trump is their only friend or supposed friend, is completely isolated. It's much, much more isolated than
yeah,
it was internationally than it was 6, 9 months ago. It is really going to be a problem for them if particularly if some of these countries put economic sanctions on them, and they're already putting military sanctions. It's going to be a real challenge for Israel moving forward in terms of. I mean, Netanyahu is also saying is already saying Israel needs to prepare itself to be Sparta.
yes,
Sparta means
yeah,
self-sufficient, right?
yeah, yeah,
Which is horrible.
yeah. So,
And by the way,
if I may, yeah,
more
if I
Americans are
may,
turning
Yaron, just
against Israel.
yeah,
Israel there's more antagonism towards Israel today on both left and right than ever
yeah,
before, and that is not helped by Trump's support. It's hurt by Trump's support.
right. But if I just on a related question though, would you see any Western nation actively taking military action against Israel, or it wouldn't get to that level of
No, I don't think
escalation?
it will get to that. It's going to be
So
interesting with the Italians and I think somebody else.
yeah, and
I think,
the Spaniards too, right? I
yeah,
think
sending ships
yeah,
for this flotilla.
yeah,
I have a feeling they'll be neutralized in ways that do not create confrontation. Um,
okay,
we'll see, but
right,
but no, I don't think so. I mean, the closest you could get, and this is of course a real threat, and this is of course the damage that Donald Trump is doing, is Turkey, and
yeah,
Trump Trump is now talking about giving Turkey F-35s,
I know.
and Erdogan is his best friend. Of course, Erdogan's an authoritarian. Trump loves
Yep,
authoritarians.
yep.
So Turkey's probably the biggest threat to Israel in terms of NATO members, and maybe the biggest threat in the Middle East if it can act independent of the United States.
Hmm. Okay, thanks. I'm asking all the optimistic questions today.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks. Thanks for
All right, Jacob.
I will say though that gaffe that Trump had about Erdogan and rigged elections was pretty hilarious. I'm not sure if you saw that.
No, I
Yeah,
didn't see that.
they had a press conference and they were talking about 2020,
Oh
and then
yeah.
it was rigged elections, and then he's like,
Yep.
and this guy Erdogan knows a lot about rigged elections.
Yep.
So
And he
my
said it kind
question,
of admirably, but admiringly, not as a criticism.
yeah, the best was seeing his face. Erdogan was just like, oh shit, I don't know what to do here. Uh, but my question, so good news, follow the bad news. I just got engaged this 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
Uh,
congratulations.
yep. So going to the courthouse to finish it up on next Friday. Any advice or stuff to, we've been dating for roughly 4 years, so not much has changed, but any advice for the first year or 2 years of marriage? Uh, we already taught kids, probably going 3, 4 years from now for kids. So now it's just finishing up career, probably do one more year or maybe a year and a half in St. Louis and then relocate to a more friendly city and place where I can get more engineering experience rather than operations. Because I've
Good.
been in operations for about 5.5 years.
No, I think that's right. I think the most important thing is if you want to have kids is to talk about it and figure out when, have some time where you are married without kids so that you really have a chance to explore that. Once kids arrive, they dominate everything. They suck the life out of you. I mean, they suck the time out of you. Uh, I didn't mean that to be as a negative, but I mean, it really is. It's overwhelming. It's all consuming, and it's very difficult. So you want to, when you have kids, you want to be in a position where, yeah, you've been together for such a long time, and you've gone through stuff that you know each other. You know how you're going to deal with it. You know how you're going to handle everything. You're not learning about each other while you're also dealing with kids. Um, I mean, look, the main thing is to embrace this idea of living a life together, to figure out how you're going to do it, what it's all going to mean, to really give it to fight through it, because you're gonna have challenges. You're gonna have things you disagree on, things you get upset about, and things, and if you're with it to each other to fight through those things. Communication, communication, communication. That's not a cliche. Talk about stuff. Don't let problems or issues or things that you have between you fester. Don't let anything, hash it out before you go to sleep at night. Don't
Uh-huh.
don't sleep on a pissed off attitude. Um, and have lots of sex, because again, once you have kids, that'll diminish. So you might as well take advantage of the fact that before. Uh,
Mhm.
and again, because you plan on having kids, travel, do things that for the first 10 years of having kids you won't be able to do. Just be
Yeah.
realistic about that. You can go on short vacations and stuff if you've got people who will babysit, but generally you're going to have very little time alone. So cherish the time that you have alone. And I know everybody's like, yeah, he's exaggerating having kids. It's not. No, all the people who have kids all going, yeah, absolutely. Yaron's absolutely right. All the people who not yet had kids are going, no, he's exaggerating it. No, it's life changing in a good way, but also in a sense of it's life changing. It's so things that you want to do that are about the two of you, do over the next 3, 4 years before you actually have kids. Embrace it, travel, see the world, do
Yeah.
fun stuff together. Yeah.
Yeah, my parents are very active with supporting, so I know they would be there. And small side
Well,
question.
if you
So
move
she's
away, though, they might not be, right?
yeah, but they would come out and visit. I
Okay.
know
Well,
they're
that's good.
bored retirees, so
There
that's
you
why
go.
they're doing that Eurofication.
There
But
you go.
side question there. So she's Taiwanese Canadian. So then it would be for me if I wanted to get status in either country. What do you recommend? Probably Taiwan rather than just Canada for global tax on Canada too.
Canada doesn't have global tax.
Oh, okay.
Canada doesn't have global tax. I mean, Taiwan, if you one day want to become a Chinese citizen,
No, it's Eastern Taiwan and Western Taiwan.
Eastern Taiwan, well, but yeah, that would be good. I mean, I always said, about China taking over Hong Kong, that Hong Kong might take over China. And for a while, I thought that was happening, that Hong Kong was taking over China, and then it kind of flipped on me. Um, I don't know. Get them both. What the hell?
Okay,
I'm
I'll
for
see.
maximizing the number of passports. I know these days that's un-American, and you have split loyalties, and they might go after you for having multiple passports. This administration, particularly if you're Jewish. You're not Jewish, I don't think.
Nope.
Call no. Yeah, but if you're Jewish and you have an Israeli passport, you're obviously suspect. And so
Although when I
waiting.
when I do get a tan, some people call me Arabic, like
Okay,
Tunisian or Turkish. So
here you go.
I've been keeping myself very pale to avoid all the controversy that comes from
Yeah,
that.
don't get suntanned. That's good.
All
Oh,
right.
God. Yeah, I'm waiting for my meeting at ICE to talk about my position.
All right. Thanks,
Um,
Aaron.
thanks, Jacob. All right, Holden.
Hey, Yaron. I was, I guess, like similar on the topic. I was wondering, like, I did see this video that was like, oh, you should get married at like before 25, right? I think that's like silly, honestly. But maybe it's different for other people. I don't know. Like, I don't have like a strong opinion, I guess. I'm just like curious on what you would think. It was Ben Shapiro, I think, or some, conservative guy. But
I'm
um
shocked. I'm shocked that it was.
yeah. Yeah, but no, it's just like I'm just
Yeah.
like yeah,
According to
they're
Jordan
like
Peterson, you don't become mature. You're not a mature adult until you have kids. And if you don't never had kids, you just never, you're out on the maturity thing.
yeah.
You're never gonna make it on maturity.
I listen to these conservatives. I'm like, how can anyone believe this? Like, it's just so stupid to me.
Well,
I'm
but they're
like,
growing, as Amelin told us, the Charlie Cook thing. I think Turning Point has just added 2 million Christians or something to their network or something
oh my
ridiculous like
goodness.
that. They're growing in leaps and bounds. There is no age. You get married when you're ready to get married, right? I got married very young, so 20, younger than 25. And I lucked out, and it worked out great, right? And it turned out really well for us because in many respects, we grew up together. So we kind of learned about life and learned about the world and everything together. So, we grew only stronger because we were so young and had all these adventures, and learned objectivism and learned about art and learned about just a lot of things, but just everything was together. And we didn't have kids for 7 years after we got married, so we had that time where it was just the two of us, and so. But look, you got to find the right person. And I know people who get married in their 30s and 40s and have amazing marriages, and people who get married in their 20s, early 20s, and have horrible marriages. And it's not an age thing. It's an issue of finding the right person, and working on the relationship and investing in it and fighting for it, and then living it. So no, I mean there's no rule, there's no criteria. I mean the only limitation on age is if you want to have kids, the woman has to be fairly young, just because and there is growing risk the older you get, in terms of childbirth, but that's not 25, that's maybe 35, for a woman, but it's or 40 really, but it's, yeah. I mean, the hard part is finding the right person. If you find them when you're really young, great, as I did, fantastic. If you don't find them until you're 35 or 45 or 55 or 65, whenever you find them, do it. Don't, it's not a timeline thing.
Yeah, that's how I'm like, I honestly probably won't find someone I like for a long time, but I'm fine with that, like but yeah, like trying to like say before 25, it's just like these
It's
people.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous. So just, I mean, the important thing is to keep looking and not to give up on it and to be engaged. And like everything else in life, if it's a value, and it should be a value, it is a value to have a relationship, then go and really work on it. Pursue that value.
fair, thanks.
Sure. All right, let's do some super chats. Ali says, just saying, thanks for the $20, Ali. Really appreciate it. Rob from Australia. Barry Weiss recently argued we need a charismatic centrist to bring America back from the brink post Charlie Cook. Surely such a person is impossible. I can't imagine a passionate pragmatist ever gaining traction. Um, I mean, I don't know. Bill Clinton, was very popular and gained traction. He was a passionate pragmatist. Who else would be a pragmatist who is, I mean, the ultimate pragmatist in Ayn Rand's view was JFK. And JFK was quite charismatic, and people really liked him and followed him. And he was definitely a pragmatist. He was like the ultimate pragmatist, according to Rand. Uh, so I think the point is that Barry's saying, and I think she's right, is there is an appeal right now to somebody who's just normal, um, who's not woke, who doesn't buy into the whole woke agenda and all the craziness on the left, pro-Hamas, insanity from the left, and is not a Christian nationalist and just a thug on the right, just straight up regular American politician. And in order to attract attention, because given he'd have to have some charisma. Now, what does that look like? I don't know exactly, but again, an RFK, a Bill Clinton, I mean, all the presidents were like that, with the exception of maybe what's his name, Ronald Reagan, who pretended to be an idealist, ultimately was quite a pragmatist. They were all kind of pragmatists. Who wasn't a pragmatist? The whole line of them. Nixon, I mean, he had no charisma and he was a pragmatist. But I think RFK's a model, Clinton's a model. Obama, there's another one. Obama, I think a lot of people think Obama has charisma and is a pragmatist and is passionate. I never liked him. I never got it. I never got what people saw. I thought he was full of empty platitudes. He gave an empty speech that said nothing, meant nothing. But that's what it means to be a centrist. To be a centrist means you stand for nothing. And what we need is I guess what we need, just to avoid the insanity out there, what we need is a charismatic zero, a charismatic somebody who stands for nothing. And yeah, for me and you, that's not charisma, but for the country, it seems to be. But I think it's too late for that. Sadly, I think it's too late for that. I don't know how a person like that wins. Who supports him? And it's not clear that you could create the electoral infrastructure. I mean, Elon Musk floated the idea of doing it, of starting a political party like that. And he's kind of disappeared. He's kind of shut up about it because I think the enormity of the task has become real to him, and he's decided, nah, he's just not going to do it. So if Elon Musk can't do it with his billions and billions, then who's going to do it? It strikes me as just too late. The Republican Party is finished. Democratic Party is probably finished. Yeah, I don't see the solution as a third party, but I just don't see who is going to get it all set up and who is going to make it happen and make it work. If not Elon Musk, I'm not sure who can. And Elon is too wacky, I think, to pull it off. He's too all over the place. Anyway, good question, Rob. A passionate pragmatist. But yeah, they exist. They exist because of what Adam told us. And the unthinking public can't see through their emptiness and through their platitudes and through their empty slogans and think there's something real there. They give them much more credit than they deserve. They don't see the complete emptiness of those characters. Ishant out Weshet. I have no idea what that means. Anyway, National Geographic made a magazine on shipwrecks. This is recently, 2025. A return to form. Didn't know pepper was worth its weight in gold in the 1400s. Yeah, I mean, in the 1400s, in the early days of exploration, in the early days of trade with a global trade, the 14 and 1500s, when ships would go around the Cape of Good Hope or around the Horn of Africa and to trade with Asia, what they traded for was spices. Spices were saffron and pepper and other spices. And there were islands on the Indonesian, as part today, I think, of Indonesia or the Philippines. They were called the Spice Islands, where most of these spices were grown. And it was like, this is what they fought wars over. They fought wars over spices for food. I mean, this is why, I mean, this is the reality, guys. European food is flavorless, tasteless. It's yucky, disgusting, like old English food, right? Until they discover spices. And then only then can you get French cooking and you can get actually good European food. And most good European food is in the West and South because those are the places that traded with Asia. Like, with all due respect to Adam, Polish cooking, not that much going for it. Or German cooking or Danish cooking, except for the fancy restaurants today, or I don't know, Czech cooking. Eh, but once you get to France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, they had the spices. They were connected to Asia and to Arabia, where all these spices were being, grown, and they could cook. Everybody else couldn't cook. There's no good food there. Anyway, the Born Jesus was full of it. 20 kilograms of mint coins and ivory. Trade is awesome. Yeah, there's a great book if you like that kind of stuff. Eschen out Western. I recommend this book called. It's really good. It goes into all the details of the spice trade and just trade in all of human history. And I read it recently, and I will give you the name of it in a second. Something. It's not that. It's not that. Da-da-dum. All right. Oh, yes. A Splendid Exchange. A Splendid Exchange by William Bernstein. A Splendid Exchange by William Bernstein. It is brilliant. It is so much fun. And he goes through the whole history of trade to modern times. And he spends a lot of time on that spice trade. And yes, spices were all the rage in Europe. They would send silver to Asia and bring back cloth, silk, and spices, and then ultimately tea, right? But it was all about, and then coffee. Coffee became a big cultural thing, and that was from Africa. When it comes to food, Europe still needs an enlightenment. But when it comes to everything else, Europe is the place, but not flavor. All right, Lucinda. Lucinda says, you said I should email you about my question with my girlfriend going to Florence, but I can't find your email address. Also, can't watch live right now, but everyone sends stickers and super chats. Yeah, listen to Lucinda. We're way behind on stickers and super chats. Let's see. Yaron at yaronbookshow.com. It's easy. Lucinda, Yaron at yaronbookshow.com. I'm surprised you couldn't just find that on the web. I thought my email address is floating around everywhere. Michael, I have a ton of questions for you. Once I get home in 30 minutes, don't end the show early. If I do, I'll be on tomorrow, and I'll be on Monday, and I'll be on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. So you'll have plenty of time to ask the questions, Michael. But I'm not sure when you said that, so I'm not sure when the 30-minute clock starts. All right, let's go back to our panel, Jennifer.
Do you think if someone gets divorced like multiple times, it's maybe evidence? I don't think it's proof because maybe they had bad luck or something, but it could be evidence that maybe they have some kind of issues that they can't sustain relationships or something wrong there, or not necessarily.
Well, it might be that they can't sustain relationship. It might be that they have make bad judgments about people, that they get too enthusiastic too quickly and too unenthusiastic too quickly. That is, that they don't judge people well. Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to tell. It could be bad luck. It could be just not having good judgment when it comes to people. I think those are the two options. Yeah, and it could, yeah, people grow apart. So divorce it doesn't surprise me at all that people get divorced. It makes sense to me. I think the idea of banning divorce, as divorce was banned for a long time under Christianity, is absurd and ridiculous. People do grow apart. People do discover once they live together that they're not as good of a match as they thought they were. And life, you only live once. So if it's not working, it's not working. You got to recognize that and walk away and try to make it work somewhere else. But if you do that, I don't know, many times, then there certainly might be an issue. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. All right, Adam.
Okay, at the risk of overdoing Poland again, I recently saw a video of new military technologies that are being developed with the experience of the Ukraine war. And two of them involve neural network processing units, which are now a standard part of processing units for computers. And one of them is probably outside your area of expertise, which is AI adaptive mesh networks, which adapt themselves to whatever jamming the enemy is doing. And a mesh network is much more resilient than a satellite-based network like Starlink.
Sure.
But the other is really interesting, which is having an array of machine guns and low caliber cannon as an anti-aircraft defense, with AI being used to predict the path of drones so that you can shoot them down at very low cost, because a bullet or even a cartridge for a low caliber machine gun doesn't cost very much. And those armaments are already available in large quantities. It's just a matter of aiming and firing them intelligently.
Sure.
What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of that makes sense. The war in Ukraine, in particular, much more than Israel's wars, the war in Ukraine in particular is revealing kind of the potential future of warfare. The use of drones is extensive. It really dominates the battlefield. You don't hear about tanks. You don't hear about personnel carriers anymore. It's just everything pretty much is carried out by drones and missiles. And so I think the Ukrainians, the stuff the Ukrainians have built is pretty unbelievable. The amount of, I think I talked about in a previous show, just the number of drones they're building and the capabilities of their drones that they've learned on the battlefield. Poland is right there. I think a lot of what the Ukrainians are doing, or some of what the Ukrainians are doing, are joint ventures with the Poles. The Poles are highly incentivized because they are right there facing the Russians, and they have a long history of conflict with Russia. So they're highly incentivized to learn whatever they can from the battlefield in Ukraine and improve on technology. The future of war. I think Neil Ferguson has a article out this last week about the future of war. Now, I don't think Neil Ferguson knows what the future of war is, but his perspective is the future of war is all drones. It's drone swarms. It's drone swarms coming for you, and you're just overloaded with thousands of drones. You can't do anything. It completely shuts you down. Of course, the technology you talked about and other technology is also going to make it possible to knock down those drones. And there's all kinds of also, the electronic interference will become more and more complicated and more sophisticated. But I don't know if you saw Israel just operationalized and is putting into the field their laser technology, which is very, very cheap. You just need an electricity source, and you can knock down for almost nothing drones and missiles and everything else. So there is going to be a big battle between the drones and the anti-drone technology, and it's hard to tell who's going to win that battle. I think that's why I don't think you can tell what the future of war is, because you don't know who's going to win that battle. And if it might be something what's next after drones? If the lasers and these machine guns and whatever neutralize the drones, then what comes after drones? And it's going to be something, and we're going to just have to watch the future of warfare and watch how it develops and evolves to see what that actually is going to be. I think,
The key thing that I took out of it is that all these systems adapt in real time using artificial intelligence.
yep, you're going to see a lot more of that, a lot more of that, and then the question is going to be, how much autonomy are you going to give these systems? That is, you know, to what extent can you put safeguards in there that they don't turn around and attack you, or they don't attack the wrong targets, or they don't make judgments in quotation marks, because it's not real judgments, it's just a machine. Judgments about targets that are inappropriate, and you're going to have to build those safeguards into the AI. And I think that is a challenge everybody's facing. The technology's there to let these things go and make the call without human interference. There's still a lot of reluctance to let them completely loose out there. But yeah, I mean, the future of warfare is AI machines fighting each other. That's the future, whether it's drones, whether it's robots. I mean, if you're seeing the robots coming out of China that have these incredible abilities of agility, tanks that are unmanned, airplanes that are unmanned, F-35 with no pilot. That is ultimately the future of warfare. Thanks, Adam. Amlan.
Yeah, so you've mentioned many times in your show about the differences between Trump's current kind of cabinet and his first term. And I think you use the term like in the first case, he had grown-ups in the room, and now he's got loyalists.
Yep.
And I guess my question would be, and again, like, forget it that it's Trump, which I know is hard to do, but let's just set that aside. But in principle, though, is it not legitimate that the president will want to have a cabinet that will reflect his ideas and vision and all those things? And like, in private sector, I mean, that's pretty common, right? Like, if you have a new leadership put in, it's not uncommon that you're going to start to make changes, and that definitely, people in key positions and stuff, you're going to replace them and so
Yeah,
forth. So why not the same thing in politics?
Oh, absolutely. You should replace them and put in people that are basically aligned with you strategically. But what you don't want is yes men. That is, if you're a new CEO at a company and you're going to replace the C-suite executives, you don't want to put in and indeed, often CEOs don't do that. They keep many of the people because they want continuity. But let's say if you're bringing in a new chief financial officer, you don't want a chief financial officer who will just do whatever you tell them. You want a chief financial officer that'll come to you with, if there are issues, if he identifies problems, if he sees inconsistencies, if he thinks your strategy is going to cause the company to be in trouble. You want somebody who will mention that, will tell you. The same with your chief, chief operating officer, or any of your C-suite people. You want people who will speak up, who will challenge, who will have an opinion, who will have and won't just say, "Oh, you think that? Then it's yes." It's like every team. Assuming this is a team, it's like every team. What you want is independent thinkers. You want people who can think for themselves, and who will contribute their own independent thought and not just repeat what you say, like the people around Trump. So you want people who agree with you on a strategy and are willing to challenge you on how to implement it.
But if we
And who are
take
independent
that
thinkers.
though,
What's that?
right? Yeah. So, but if we look at his current cabinet, I mean, whatever the heck strategy he has, I mean, it seems like people agree with it.
No, I don't
I
think.
mean,
I don't think that's the
no.
case. No, I
Like,
don't
who
think.
doesn't agree with it?
I don't think Besant agrees. I think he just goes along.
Okay.
And other people there, look, there's no strategy. I mean, what they
Yeah.
agree is,
Yeah.
Trump is always right. Now,
Right.
that's not a
Right.
strategy, and that's not a good team to have around you, people who think you're always right. That's a bad strategy. If you're somebody who wants to get stuff done, the worst thing you can do is create a team around you who think that you can never do wrong.
Yeah.
Everything you do is
Yeah.
right. That's the
Right.
people he has around him.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not
I
like
guess I.
here's my strategy for fixing America. I'm going to do this on foreign policy. I'm going to do this on spending, on taxes,
Yeah.
da, 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 da. And people say, yeah, I agree with that. I'm going to join the cabinet. No, the strategy is, I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to raise tariffs or not, or I'm going to give exclusions here or not. We're going to cut taxes over there, and we're going to increase spending or not. It depends. We'll wing it, and it depends on my mood at any given point in time. Anybody says, oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. 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 I guess that's the thing when you have somebody that just basically has no direction at all. It's
The only direction he has is the
it's
pursuit of
tariffs.
home,
Tariffs. Yeah.
whatever. And
Yeah.
tariffs. He loves tariffs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Okay.
I don't
Fair
know
enough.
how many people in that cabinet actually think tariffs is a good idea. I don't know. It's hard to tell because they've
Yeah.
all basically prostituted themselves. They've given up on their own minds and they've accepted whatever.
Yeah. Which I don't know. Like to me, it's just it's something I can't even comprehend. Like how can you be so
I
what
can,
is such of the perks of the job that you're so willing to just give up everything? Like to me, it boggles my mind.
yeah, I know.
What kind of person are you? Thanks, Yaron.
Sure. Hold it.
Hey, you're on. I wanted to ask you, like, at this point, um, like, I guess like the Republican Party seems to be getting like more religious um, and they really like the kind of like populist message, I guess. Um, would you say like Ben Shapiro or Tucker Carlson is like more like if they were to like be in the Republican primary and the Republicans could only vote for Ben Shapiro or Tucker Carlson, who do you think they would pick to win?
Wow, that's a hard one. I want to say I hope that they would pick Ben Shapiro, but I'm
Yeah.
not at all certain of that, particularly given that Ben is Jewish. I'm not sure how well a Jew could do in the Republican Party these days. Um,
Mhm.
you know,
There's like a lot of anti-Semitism too, like going around, as you know, better than I do, probably. Like
yeah,
it's like scary to see. Like and Ben Shapiro, like like even like what 7 years ago, he was like the face, and then he kind of just dropped off because like his foreign policy became unpopular and like all that stuff, right? So
his foreign
yeah.
policy, the fact that he's Jewish, the fact that he still defends capitalism periodically, he's still
Mhm.
good on some issues. None of that is important or significant to them, and he still thinks for himself sometimes. So,
Yeah.
and he's not, he doesn't buy into the conspiracy theories
Mhm.
mostly. So, so he's more rational than the typical Republican pundit, and that makes him unpopular. That's
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
Republican Party today.
Yeah. I remember he criticized Trump's tariffs. Like I was gonna write in the chat. Everybody knows Trump is a buffoon, right? Like everyone's like, "Oh, Trump is a threat to democracy." All this, like,
Yeah.
I just look at it like this is like funny. Like he's just a pompous, ostentatious buffoon. Is like
Yep.
that's all
Yep.
I really think about him. But I mean, Ben Shapiro knows that, but he's just like he has like he will like you say he will like criticize Trump on like something stupid like tariffs, but he probably like has convinced himself that what he's done is like okay. I don't know, but it's just like such a sad thing to see.
It's
Um,
sad. It's sad, and it's really hard to tell where where this goes from here. How does the Republican Party become worse, or is this the bottom and it becomes better from here? It's hard to tell.
it looks like it's getting worse with like the Charlie Kirk Memorial and how
Yes,
religious it was just
but
like,
is that the peak worse, or is it going to get worse from here?
uh,
I think it's going to get worse, but yeah.
yeah.
It's,
It's like my favorite question to ask is, do you prefer Ben Shapiro or Tucker Carlson? To them, like, but yeah.
what
Anyway,
do you mostly get an answer?
I mostly it's like 50-50 right now. It's
Really?
like, yeah, it's like 50-50.
The 50% of people prefer Tucker Carlson.
Uh, yeah, I'd say like 50%. Yeah, probably so. Like,
You,
it
you need
depends
to
on what
switch,
crowd you go
you
into,
need to
right?
switch your social group.
Oh, I don't associate with those people. Like,
Okay.
get them away from me as fast as possible. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even want to be associated with you if
That's
you like
crazy.
even sympathize with anything. Like, the guy, like,
Yeah.
I remember on your podcast, I don't know this stuff, right? Like, I look at your podcast and Tucker Carlson says he thinks feudalism is better than what we have today. It's like, there's no way a grown man just said that on live and he's dead serious. And it's
Oh,
like, no, I don't. If you think that, I'm not going to associate with you. Like, no, like, but
Tucker now has
um,
become both mindless and evil. And it just, I don't know anybody worse than Tucker right now. It's
uh,
just horrific. Um,
yeah,
and
Eh,
although he does have the votes at all those aliens who live among us.
yeah, he does. They're out there. Like, the thing is, I would go to like a Turning Point event just to like like kind of survey around, like, or
Yeah.
like I do it with the yeah, with like kind of just like I used to do this, and that's like kind of what I got. But
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, he gets the demon vote. All right.
right.
Thanks, Holden. Shazbad, this is from Lord of the Rings. Okay. Okay, he's saying, is The Lord of the Rings the ultimate power corrupt story? My favorite quote from the movie, the ring will not save Gondor. It has only the power to destroy. Um, it's definitely it's definitely a story about the corruption of power, this earthly power. I mean, it's supposed to be kind of some kind of religious metaphor, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. Even the good guys are corrupted by the ring. It's power can only bring about evil and bad stuff. Is it the ultimate power corrupt story? I don't know. I'd have to think about if there are other stories that are equally powerful, but it certainly is a powerful story of the corruption of power. Although, of course, it never really tells you why it's corrupting, right? It just tells you it's corrupting. And there's a sense in which it basically is coming from Tolkien's Christianity, right? We're all fallen, we're all flawed. Even the best among us, even the best human being, cannot resist having power and turning himself into evil because of the power, and that's because we're fallen. So it's very much a Christian fable in that sense, that dictates it. Why can't you have somebody good who recognizes the power, uses the power for good, and then destroys the ring? Why couldn't you do that? Why couldn't you have that? Is power corrupting in and of itself? Is power corrupting of all human beings, or just of fallen Christians or fallen beings? And I think Tolkien's clearly, we're all fallen. There's no such thing as pure goodness. But that's just Christianity. That's just Christianity. All right, Michael. Michael showed up. He's got a series of questions. All right. Evil doesn't just exist, it seduces, it sucks you in, it convinces you that hate is righteous. That is what possession really is. When your soul, your energy gets hijacked and you start moving in a current that isn't your own. That sounds really ominous, Michael. Yes, that is true, but it requires your assent. It requires your permission. It cannot possess you. It cannot move you. It cannot carry you unless you choose that. So evil can try to seduce you, but you have to choose to be seduced. Evil can suck you in only if you choose to be sucked in. You can always resist it. You can always walk away. You can always turn away from it. So there's nothing inevitable about evil. And evil is not that powerful because evil can only benefit from your flaws. Evil can only, weasel itself in because you choose to be less good, because you choose not to think, because you choose to compromise. Evil has no power in and of itself. Evil is impotent. So the way you're presenting it, you're giving evil a lot of credit, but evil's impotent. It relies on the good to not be good, to not be as good. It relies on holes in the good. Michael, is America in an era of violent populism? No, I mean, I don't think so. I did the show a few days ago, and I think people were upset at me because I said, there's not that much violence out there. There's political violence more than there should, but it's not that much. There's not like violent populism rampaging around the country. There's no, they're not burning down the cities. They're not killing politicians left and right. Yeah, there's more than there should be, but nowhere near, for example, what there was in the 60s, and nowhere near what could imagine it could become. So it's not yet the era of violent populism. It's an era of populism that, and some of it likes to think of itself as violent, but it's not confident enough to engage in violence because they're afraid that they'll lose. Like violence is a risk because you might not be successful. Michael says, what makes me somewhat hopeful is that that no one can duplicate Trump. Vance and Holy have no charisma and no cult following. Once Trump goes, I'm not sure anyone as effective can take his place. So I think that's right, except for the ability of someone potentially that we don't know. Remember, Obama was completely unknown until a few months before, until he announced as president. You never know, somebody on this sidelines who has more of a religious voice, who can unite using the language of religion. You saw that in the Charlie Cook, come to Jesus, what do you call it? I don't know, ceremony or whatever you want to call it. Really, I mean, the language, the complete, they're completely giving up and hiding their Christianity, except for Trump, who's like, forgiveness? I don't believe in forgiveness. I hate, I mean, that was pretty funny. And very unchristian of him. But imagine if you could find somebody who could really get an audience like that really fired up and emotional and ready to go and excited about action in the name of Jesus, in the name of Christianity. That's what scares me. So what scares me are the people we don't know, who are on the sidelines. And what scares me is that there's a movement building, this Christian conservative movement, this movement building with millions. And what are they going to do between now and maybe not next election, maybe it's not in 2028, maybe it's 2032 or 2036. What are they going to do between now and then? How are they going to grow? What kind of impact are they going to have? It's that scares me. I think you're right in a sense that there's, it's still true that most Americans don't like Trump. They voted for Trump because he was running against Kamala. They voted for Trump because they didn't think he was serious about tariffs. But the problem is there's nobody on the left worthwhile. And the people on the right who might run are worse than Trump, like a J.D. Vance. Worse than Trump in the sense that they're more ideological. Like Michael says, part one might think the question is what's Trump wanting to extract from the manufacture of Tylenol? But I think it's more likely the sort of case where the mob boss just shoots someone for no reason, completely out of the blue, as a message to everyone else. I don't need a reason to a mentality that deals in force. That's what power is. I think you're right. Look, I think it's also just to show they're doing something and to show that they're willing to take on anybody. It's to show his base. Look, you wanted me to do stuff. Here I'm doing stuff and I'm taking on a big company, a company that makes Tylenol. I'm taking on a brand name. I'm fearless. And it's RFK saying, I promised you I would deal with autism. Look, I'm dealing with autism. I've done it. I've made a mark. So it's one of the things that mob bosses and generally thugs, they're men of action, not of, what's important is to act. Whether it's true or not, whether it's right or not, is whether is not relevant whether there's truth there. What's important is the action. What's important is that you're perceived as doing something. And yes, at the same time, it also sends a message to corporate America: beware, beware. I'll take any one of you out. Tylenol didn't do anything to me, and I took them out. Imagine if you do something to me, I can really take you out. Michael says, doesn't Cook's wife strike you as a phony social climber? White Christian America is so phony. No, she doesn't. I think she's, I don't know, but I think she's really religious. I think all of that was real. I think her crying there was real. I think her forgiveness was forced. She forced herself to do it. I don't think she felt it, but because she's Christian, it strikes me as she's a smart, successful believer. She really believes in this stuff. Maybe she's president in 8 years or whenever. Maybe she's the one to run. Maybe she's the first woman president in American history. Because Charlie was going to be the first. He was going to be president. So maybe she takes his place, right? She's a very successful woman, and she's got the look and she's got the emotion. Who knows? She could pull it off. Michael, it makes no difference whether the ABC acted on the FCC threat. The threat itself is a brazen violation of rights. Absolutely. Absolutely. And notice how they're backing out of it now because somebody stood up to them. Disney actually stood up to them, and they're all backing down. Like the FCC, oh no, I was kidding. Except Trump. Trump keeps saying, no, you should be off the air, and I'll make him go off the air. But everybody else is like backing off because they went too far. Michael, releasing the Epstein files causes autism, claims Trump. I didn't hear that one, although it wouldn't surprise me. That's pretty funny. All right, let's go to a panel for the last round, and then we got a bunch of super chat questions for Michael, pretty much, and we'll call it a day. All right, Jennifer.
I'm done for today. Thank you, Yaron.
Thanks, Jennifer. Adam.
How much do you think California can recover from the left? We have seen the referendum in San Francisco where they kicked out the woke school board. And judging from the email and paper mail that I get from local politicians, they're all trying to distance themselves from woke and DEI. So can California get good again?
It's going to be hard. I mean, it could do it very quickly if it had the right policies, but it's going to be hard because while they're distancing themselves from, kind of the woke left, they're not distancing themselves necessarily from the regulatory, central planning left. They haven't given up on building a railroad from nowhere to nowhere, a high-speed rail, so you can go really, really fast from two shithole places in the middle of California. They're not giving up on the massive government spending. Indeed, they're increasing it. They're proposing if the federal government's cutting any kind of social spending, California says, oh, we'll increase it to compensate. So they're not giving up on that. And so the welfare state is still big. The regulatory state is still big. I haven't seen significant deregulation coming out of California. A lot of the regulations, even in tech, have been pretty bad. So look, you could fix California in a year because it has such good people and such great companies and so much industry. You deregulate on a massive scale, you lower taxes, you privatize stuff. It could happen very, very quickly. I mean, the economy would just boom. It has all the necessary components, but are they willing to do that? I don't see that willingness. I just don't see it. Yeah, woke is gone. They'll call it something different. There's still there's still a lot of cultural leftists, but the economic leftists, that's everybody pretty much. How many free market people are there in California? Sadly, very few.
California could use a Milei, but it's not in bad enough straits to get one.
Yes, I think that's right. And again, Milei sadly is in trouble right now, so you'd have to do better even than Milei. He should have dollarized his economy much faster. Maybe he couldn't. Maybe he didn't have the legislative authority to do it. But all right, Amlan.
So, question around liability. For example, if you have a pool, I think in most places, you have to have a fence around it and all this kind of stuff. So even though it's on your own land, you're still required to have kind of this protection against some liability. Now, in a proper society, presumably there would be no such laws, but would you still have liability in those kind of circumstances? Like technically nobody should be on your land because they're trespassing, and if they fall in the pool and drown, well, too bad. But what if it is a kid? I think it's normally they say, well, kids can wander, they don't know, right, that they shouldn't be there.
Yeah,
They fall in the pool.
the liability there's the parents who let them wander. So so no, I don't think you'd face liability. I mean, and if you could imagine a case where you did, then your insurance company would kind of require you to do something to reduce their risk, right? It's one of the roles insurance. Insurance would play a much bigger role in our lives.
Right.
In a free society, they would be the market regulator. They would, to a large extent, regulate stuff to standard to reduce their own risk.
But the underlying liability would still have to be there because of some legal requirement.
Yeah. So you'd have to think about a situation where you had that liability, but if it's your property, it's hard to imagine a situation where you face liability. If you've invited friends over and they fall in the pool, I don't know, they're adults, they can see a pool is there. I mean, you'd have to imagine a pretty bizarre scenario to think about where you would have actual liability.
Right.
Talking of bizarre scenarios, in California, there was a case where a burglar sued the homeowner whom he was burglarizing and won the lawsuit.
Yep. Yep. That's the craziness of California that is hard to, it's going to be hard to get out of.
Trust me, as a Canadian, that's not only in California.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Canada.
We've had plenty of cases like that.
Yeah. Canada is the future of California.
Canada, California, what the heck? Might as well join up, be the 52nd straight or something.
There you go. There you go. Thanks, Amlan. All right, Holden.
Hey, you're on. Something that I think more of, like, one of the things I like to do is read biographies, and like some of the people that I read about are just like, I mean, obviously quite extraordinary people. And like one of the things that like I was thinking whenever I read one biography, like one was on Warren Buffett, and Warren Buffett read like all the books in the public Omaha library by the time he was 11, like and I was like thinking, I was like, there could be a bunch of people that, like he has like his siblings, they didn't do that, like, so they grew up in the same household, they didn't do that. And it's hard for me to imagine like very many kids doing what he did. Obviously he has like like an interest in it, but there's something like to me that's like, there's something to me that feels a little determinist about that, like that, I mean, I know I could on my own free, like people could on their own free will do something like that, but it takes a certain person. I could like motivate you all in the world to like be that interested in a subject, but some people aren't. Um, I don't know how to explain what I thought whenever I read that, but I was like, um, I don't think I think that there's just like I don't know, like Warren Buffett is a guy that no matter how hard a lot of people try and be like him, they'll never be like that person. You know what I mean? Like even people who like investing or like um finance and the stuff that he's interested in, they'll never be Warren Buffett. And that like that's how I feel whenever I look at something like that. He's just smarter and like like he just has like natural abilities that other people don't have. Um,
Well, I
so
don't
what?
I don't know if it's natural abilities. I mean, I worry about the idea of natural abilities as being deterministic. He has made choices. He's made himself into a particular type of character that, yeah, you're not going to emulate. Are they going to be people who have better returns on investment than Warren Buffett? Yeah, I mean, there are people who've done better than Warren Buffett, um, but using different techniques. And Warren Buffett is unique in many respects, and there won't be another Warren Buffett because he created a unique being. Um, but there will be other good investors. There might be even better investors than Warren Buffett, but they'll be different, and they maybe use some of the principles that he used, but it'll still be different because it'll be a different mind with different values making kind of the choices and assessments. It's not an exact science investing in that sense because it's about predicting the future. And as soon as you're talking about predicting the future, it's not an exact science. It's a science, but it's not an exact science. So yeah,
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there'll be other great investors, but of course, like Warren Buffett gets much lower returns today because he deals with less money. Like one of the things I read about in his biography is he for over a decade he got about 50% returns per year per annum. He was dealing with like small amounts of money, and that's just like insane. Like if
yep,
anybody comes up to you and says they could do 50%, just tell say we'll see you later.
yep,
But Warren Buffett, you could listen, and he's I saw in an interview he said, "I guarantee you that today." I would make 50% returns with $1 million.
yep.
Um, and I know he's like not lying, like he actually has done it before. Um,
Well, and
but
people are doing it constantly. I mean, the venture capital community do it.
uh
Renaissance investing did it for many years with a very diversified portfolio, just pure investing, pure
hmm.
speculation, and they did it. So people can do it. It's just very unusual, and it's a very rare skill to be able to do that.
Yeah, but anyway, I
Requires
mean,
a certain genius.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, besides the point, basically, it's like I think there's only a few people on the planet that even if like even if you had millions and millions of people who want to do something like that and are willing to do like whatever the work is required, I don't think they would do it,
I, I agree.
I'm not saying that it requires like I don't think you have to be like an Einstein IQ to do it, but you do have to be very talented.
You have
You
to be
know.
very talented, and you have to have made certain choices about who you are and what you are and how you
Uh,
function
Yeah.
that are unique and extraordinary. Yes.
Yeah, I see. I definitely see. I definitely believe in free will. I think, I think Warren Buffett easily could have chosen to be a criminal scumbag, but he didn't, right?
Yep.
And he decided to like, do what was necessary to become the guy he did. And same with like all the successful people.
Yep.
Um, so I guess like that's where like the happy part is. But so part of me just reads that and thinks, man, this just takes one hell of a human being that comes one in a million, one in a billion, you
I
know?
agree. I agree.
But yeah.
Yeah, and we all rest on those shoulders, right? Of an Aristotle or Galileo or Newton or those are extraordinary or Ayn Rand, extraordinary human beings that come just once in a whatever millennium or whatever, and change the world in
Yeah.
fundamental ways.
Yeah, they at least they come.
Yep. Well, they come at periods where they're allowed to exist, if you will.
Yeah.
Who knows how many will come
Galileo
and disappear?
almost we almost lost him too.
Yep.
Uh,
All right, let's see. Neo, even Barack Obama sounds good right now over Trump. Yeah, no kidding. OLW, do you have any thoughts on the UK's proposal to introduce ID cards? Yeah, I mean, I'm against all ID cards. I'm against digital ID. It's a way for the government to track you. It's unnecessary. We've got driver's licenses, we've got passports, we've got, I don't know, bank cards. You've got a million digital ways in which you can be identified, and you could get a token that identifies you. There's so many ways to get your identity verified. The last thing we need is a nationalized, another national standardized ID that everybody's required to walk around with. We become more and more like a police state. So I'm against that. Michael, if this is just a giant stock market bubble and it collapses into a major recession, will Trump, while Trump is still in office, will he impose martial law or engage in widespread deregulation? Oh, who knows what he will do? I have no idea. He could do widespread deregulation now. I don't actually know what Trump would do if we had a major financial crisis. He would panic. We saw that with COVID. His response is to panic and to say everything is fine and to blame the stock market for the stock market collapsing, to blame people. Who knows? Who knows? I think he'll basically delegate to Bessent and let Bessent do whatever he wants, which is what he did with Fauci, right? He delegates and then once in a while comes out with some crazy statement about the state of the world. But I don't think you're looking at massive deregulation as a way to get out of it. There's nothing in his way of thinking about the world that would suggest that he would respond in that way. Michael, thoughts on my latest speech at the UN? Actually, haven't heard it yet, so I don't know. I'll listen to it. Michael, could AI do a documentary on Hitler's philosophers, showing a lay audience how Kant, Hegel, and the others led to Nazism, and how their influence still exists today and guides people thinking? Sure, you could turn Almost Parallels into a documentary. I think a very powerful one. The problem is, who's going to watch it? 99.9% of documentaries are watched by almost nobody, unless you have an amazing marketing network, unless you have a way to get the documentary into the hands of the right people and nobody watches it. The book is there. How many people read it? And yeah, people watch more stuff today, but people don't watch serious documentaries. Again, I've been involved in making documentaries, and you make them and they're really good, and then nothing happens. Nobody ever sees them. You wasted all that money and all that effort and all that stuff, and nothing happens. You have huge hopes for it. But yeah, I mean, making a documentary on Ominous Powers is a great idea. Michael, a German historian thinks there are more Nazis in America than Germany today. Well, America's much bigger. It's quite possible. It's quite possible, but I don't know how you define a Nazi. Who's a Nazi? Yeah, I'm skeptical about those kind of measures. Michael, does the left not realize why they lose? They're just so in their own pretend world that they have no idea how to read actual human beings. No, but it's not about winning or losing. I mean, this is the thing. It's not like the left says, "Oh, what ideology should we believe in so we can win?" They believe in what they believe, and much of the left believes in woke, multicultural, DEI. They believe in that stuff. They think that stuff is real. They think that's justice. They think that's goodness. They are righteous for believing it. It's not that they're bad at strategy. It's that they're bad at ideas. They have rotten ideas. And the ideas are fundamentally disintegrating ideas. And that makes it very difficult to win. Michael, if Israel were a first world Catholic country instead of a first world Jewish country defending itself, would the world have the same vitriolic reaction to it? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Although it would still have some negative reaction, because those Catholics would still be first world and they'd be beating up on third world. So whenever the first world beats up on the third world, there is a reaction. It just wouldn't be quite as bad, but it would be. James, protectionism is pure altruism in action, demanding the productive sacrifice, pay more for less and make do with less. Yes, protectionism is all about sacrificing for some for the sake of others. It's a redistribution. It's a massive redistribution, and it can only be justified through altruism. Not your average algorithm. Saying how you feel will never ruin a real connection. Um, yeah, as long as it's a real connection, a healthy connection, as long as you're real and you're healthy, then yes. Not your average algorithm. Was the majority of the Republican Party always ignorant, hateful, and racist, or is it a new development? I think it's worse. I don't know if it's a majority. I don't think it's a majority even today, but it's certainly worse today. It goes in phases. It goes in phases. It used to be that most of the racists were in the Democratic Party. Jim Crow was in Democratic states. The South was Democratic in those days. Is our world fallen? I'm not sure what you mean by fallen. It's certainly struggling. It's certainly struggling. Culturally, ideologically, and economically. It's struggling. Harper Campbell, October 7th didn't happen because Palestinians were denied a state. It happened because they were given one. Absolutely. They were given the state of Gaza in 2005. Nate, thoughts on Hind Rajab, 5-year-old, being killed in Israel-Gaza? I see lots of pro-Gaza argue her and the paramedics were purposefully killed by the IDF. I don't know. I haven't looked into it, so I don't know. Look, it's war. People die. I don't know. I don't know what you expect. The children are going to die in war. Absolutely. Were they purposefully killed? Was like the Israeli military looking to kill children and paramedics? It's very, very, very doubtful that is the case, and how anybody would know that, how they would figure that out, how they could tell what the Israeli soldier was thinking when they shot. But look, horrible things happen in war. Is it possible that some Israeli soldier freaked out and shot them, or some Israeli whatever? I guess. But what purpose would it serve? Who would benefit from that? Nobody. Would it hasten the end of the war? It's certainly not a strategic thing for them to do. But it's a war. Bad stuff happens. You want to end the war? Surrender. If Hamas surrenders, hands over the hostages, the war's ended, and children stop dying. So all these stories, could there be a case? Sure. So what are you going to do about it? Harper Campbell, do you find it hard to cut people off when you've been friends with them for many years, but objectively discover they're bad person and bad for your life? Do you have a moral obligation to tell them why you're cutting them off, or go cold turkey? What if you run into them? How do you handle the awkwardness? No, I have never had a problem of cutting people off. Once they're a liability, then they're a liability, and they need to be cut off, and it's done. Do you have a moral? So I don't feel an obligation. Do you have an obligation to tell them why? It depends. It depends on why you're cutting them off. It depends on the context, what kind of relationship you have. You might, the closer you were, the closer you are with them, the more that obligation exists. On the other hand, it might be that what's happened, they should know why you're cutting them off. It's obvious. They did something really bad and they should know about it. They know it. So you don't need to help them with their evasion. So it really depends a lot on the context. And how do you get over the awkwardness? You just do. You just move on. And sometimes you want to tell people this is why. Partially because maybe they can redeem themselves. So I think it very, very, very much depends on the context, all of those answers to all of those questions. But I have not had a problem in my life doing that. All right, Liam's just come in with $50 question. Thank you, Liam. As bad as things are in Canada, there is hope with Poilievre and many of the conservatives. The US looks worse to me. especially down the road. The rise of Christian nationalism is not longer a fringe of society that can be dismissed. There is a complete abandonment of reason and science. Looks like a regression back to medieval times. Yeah, I mean, the real, I mean, Poilievre so on, but they lost. It looked like they were going to win, and they lost big time. So I don't know, but it's quite possible that Canada's future is more positive. But I also would, you know, it's easy to overemphasize the negative. It's easy to say, look at the Christian nationalists. Look, I mean, but most people are not Christian nationalists. Most Republicans are not Christian nationalists. I know a lot of Republicans who are Jews and are still Republicans. The Republican Party is not a Christian nationalist party yet. They're growing, and it's scary, but I don't know if that's the future of the country. It could be something that really, at the end of the day, these kids that are discovering Christianity could grow out of it very quickly and easily. It really is hard to tell. I don't think we're heading towards medieval times, although it sometimes feels that way. It's really going to be a question of, can somebody rally the non-Christian, non-woke, the non-Christian nationalist, non-woke people? Is there a political force that can rally those people? Is there a cultural force that can rally those people? I don't think America is destined to become a Christian nationalist country, even now with them on the rise. All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you to our panel. Thank you, Jennifer, Adam, Amlan, Holden, and Jacob, who was here earlier. Thank you to all the super chatters. Really appreciate the support. I probably have a show tomorrow, and then we'll have a show every day this week if all goes well. So we'll be back on kind of a semi-regular schedule. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, Yaron.
Bye, Yaron.
Bye.
Have a good week.